Welcome to Bowbend Consulting's book talk on Wendy Mogul's classic book, The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. I'm Peyton Williams, your host for today, and I'm so excited to be talking about this great book because it is a life-changing book when you're a parent to understand that being a parent of children who are resilient means that you do a lot of letting go. And this book changed my life as a parent, and so I hope to share some of my favorite parts with you today. I'm a former educator of 16 years, just a little introduction so you know who I am. Former educator, 16 years in the classroom as an English teacher and an administrator in a middle school and high school. And now I run Bowbend Consulting, where our mission is to inspire and equip schools and organizations to partner with parents to raise thriving children of character. And so today, let's start talking about the characteristic of resilience. In Wendy Mogul's book, The Blessing of a Skinned Knee, she writes about different topics in each chapter. And you'll see here the ones highlighted in pink are the ones that I'm going to specifically dive into today. So we're not going to talk about the whole book, and I encourage you to go buy it and take a look at it. It is a phenomenal read, particularly if you are new to parenting or if you're trying to kind of start over a little bit with how you want to help your kids be resilient. So the first chapter talks about accepting your child as they are. The second one, and we'll dive into that one. The second one is about the power of having someone to look up to, which is honoring your father and mother. The blessing of a skinned knee is chapter 3, which is where the book title comes from. Chapter 4 is about having an attitude of gratitude and teaching gratitude in your home as a way to foster resilience. Chapter 5 is about work and the power of giving chores and kind of the everyday life as a tool you have in your back pocket to help your children. Chapter 6 talks about food and some routines around food. And then chapter 7 is about self-control. So for those of you who got children and you're thinking, gosh, my child has got some strengths and some weaknesses, and how am I going to help them use that? That's a great chapter. The value of the present moment and the power of time and being able to be present for your children is chapter 8. And then chapter 9 is about faith and tradition. And this entire book, for those of you who aren't familiar, the whole title is actually about using Jewish wisdom in your parenting. And so Wendy Mogul is a practicing Jew, and this wisdom is so timely. Even if you're not Jewish, if you're any faith spectrum from nothing at all to holiest of holy, everyone, I believe, will be able to find some wisdom in this book. And again, I highly recommend it. So we're going to dive into the first 3 chapters, looking at knowing your child as both ordinary and unique, helping your child honor you as a parent and the power of that for helping them be resilient, and then not overprotecting our children. So let's dive into this first part. These 3 chapters I thought were so helpful for me, particularly as a new parent. When our children are born, we think, oh my gosh, they're the best. They're so beautiful. They're so amazing. Look, they can crawl. I bet no child in the history of the world has ever been able to crawl. Yes, I know. Sometimes we get a little bit excited about our very unique and special children. But it's really important for us to remember that they're also pretty ordinary. There are 8 billion people on this planet, 8 billion. And our children are just one. And even in all of their uniqueness, they are pretty average and pretty ordinary in a lot of ways. And so finding that balance, both being able to see the incredible uniqueness of your child and all of their strengths and gifts, but also being able to balance that with, an attitude that allows them to be ordinary can really help your child build resilience. So let's take a look at how. I think one important note, this quote does not actually come from Blessing of a Skinned Knee. This one comes from the book Never Enough, which is a new book out that we did a session on a little bit ago, about helping your children know that they matter. But I thought this was really timely and connected to this book. Many parents see their children's achievement as an important family product. And this attitude leads to an upside down, child centered perspective where we cater to our children's whims, yet pressure them to achieve at all costs, academically, socially, and athletically. But this pressure can backfire. And again, that quote is from Jennifer Brahaney Wallace's book, Never Enough, which I also highly recommend. But I thought this was really crucial because it relates to what Wendy Mogul talks about, with this idea that sometimes when we find our children to be too unique, too special, and we center our world, it's actually really unhealthy for our kids. There's when we put them at the center, there actually becomes a lot of pressure on them. And that's one of the ways that we undermine our children's resilience, because suddenly, when everything is centered around them, they have too much power and they have too much need to perform. And I love this quote from page 49 from Wendy Mogul that says, "Keep two pieces of paper in your pockets at all times. On one, write, 'I am a speck of dust.' On the other, 'The world was created for me.'" And I think, both of those are what we have to hold as parents, right? That our children are not the center of our worlds. And yes, they kind of are, right? There's so much of our lives that revolve around them, keeping them fed, keeping them sleeping well, keeping them diapered when they're little, and then suddenly taking them to activities and helping them with their academics as, in an appropriate way, and trying to, figure out what do we do as parents to really support our children? Well, she talks about three things that I thought were really helpful. One is understand the unique traits of your child's temperament and expect differences, right? Expect them. Some of them are going to be great at math, and some of them are going to be terrible at science, and some of them are going to be dancers, and some of them are going to be musicians. But not every child is going to be great at all things. Not every child is going to be, I like to sometimes liken children to dogs. Sometimes we have the Jack Russells, sometimes we have the Golden Retrievers. And while it would be nice if all of our children would be extremely obedient, easygoing, joyful, happy-go-lucky, polite, a lot of our kids are gifted with strength. And sometimes that strength can manifest in ways that goes against what we need them to be doing. And so there's temperament that's involved in seeing your child as very unique, but that also they're not the only child with that strength. And I love what she says about accepting good enough for your child. One thing she talks about is, there's this great quote: "In order to flourish, children don't need the best of everything. Instead, they simply need what is good enough. This may include good enough but dull homework assignments, good enough but a little crabby or uninspired teachers, good enough although insect infested and humid summer camps, and good enough although bossy and shallow friends. Consider that good enough can often be best for your child." And I think as parents, sometimes we think, oh gosh, this dorm room isn't good enough, so we need to spend thousands of dollars to make it Pinterest worthy, or oh, it's not good enough for my child just to have $30 tennis shoes or $50 tennis shoes. They've got to have $100 tennis shoes to match, but they're what all their friends have. But really, no, good enough is sometimes best. And it's not just about stuff, right? It's sometimes about teachers. So, okay, maybe your child's teacher this year wasn't your favorite. Imagine that teacher could have been the best thing for your child, because that teacher may have That very average teacher may have taught your child resilience, may have taught your child how to be patient, may have taught your child how to respect authority, um, may have taught your child that the humility that comes with knowing that they are lucky to be able to be in school in a peaceful community and not have to worry about all that. But the moment as parents we start saying things like, oh, you just didn't have a good teacher this year, I'm going to request a better teacher next year. Suddenly, again, we're putting our children in the center of the world and we're not showing them that they can handle good enough. Um, Chapter 2 is another really powerful um, concept, and it's one that's a little bit old fashioned. This idea that our children need to have someone to look up to. And the way that they have someone to look up to on a daily basis is by requiring that they honor you as their parent. And that's an interesting term. It's sort of a kind of biblical old fashioned term, right? Honor your father and mother. That's one of the 10 commandments. But um, I thought that this quote was so helpful. Your children don't need two more tall friends. They have their own friends, all of whom are cooler than you. What they need are parents. And the catch is, your children will only accept your guidance and heed your advice if they respect you. And this is such, I mean, as a former educator, I can say, yes, that's exactly right. When we put our children at the center of the world, we're honoring them. And when we honor them over requiring them to honor us and other people in authority, we actually do them a disservice because they cannot build resilience if they don't understand that they are under authority. People with resilience know how to handle being humbled. They know how to handle being second. They know how to handle being last. They know how to put others before themselves. And you don't just learn that if you're the center of everybody's world, right? So when you require that your children honor you and honor your authority as their parent, you are actually gifting them with the ability to live under authority in other places in their lives. And this makes them better employees. It makes them better husbands and wives. It makes them better friends. And so, okay, how do I teach my child to honor you? Well, Wendy Mogul suggests a few ways that I think are really helpful. The first is she really asks parents who are reading this questions like, what do you do when your children interrupt you? Do you allow them to interrupt you? Well, one way, you would never interrupt the President of the United States or a visiting dignitary, right? You would wait until they were finishing speaking. And that's because you honor them. In the same way, let's let our children honor us by not allowing them to interrupt, right? If your child, I've got an 8-year-old right now who loves to tell me something, and she'll say, Mom, Mom, Mom. And I just hold up a finger after reading this book because I don't want her to think that she is in control of my attention. That's one way we demand that they honor us. When I'm finished speaking, then I'll turn to her and give her my attention. But I don't allow them to interrupt me. And I think that is one thing I learned from this book that was really helpful. I think another question she asks is, do you let your children contradict you to get their own way? So I really struggle with this with my youngest because he's hungry all the time. And I'll say, okay, dinner's over and we're not having dessert tonight. And he'll say, oh, Mom, but you said we could have dessert. And oh, man, sometimes I did say that. But really, it's like, no, but now I'm the authority in the house and I've actually changed my mind, and that's okay. I'm allowed to change my mind. And no, just because you want dessert, you can't have dessert. And or sometimes when we call our children, right? This happens all the time at play dates. All right, guys, it's time to leave. And then I always hear from my children and other children, 1 more minute, just 1 second, hang on, instead of yes, ma'am. And again, sure, you can give your child grace, but there's also this moment in tension where you're thinking as a parent, okay, are they honoring me as the authority, or are they contradicting what I asked to get their own way? And so usually in those moments, one tip would be just to walk over to your child and gently lay your hand on them and say, It's time to go, and I mean it now. And um, it's time for me to get your things. And if they keep contradicting you, right, you can say, all right, now because you contradicted me, when we get in back to the house, we're going to have a consequence. Whatever it is that you do in your household. But I think, showing your child that they live under your authority, and this will help you and them have a peaceful relationship. Do they talk back to you in public? That's a huge one in our family. And the phrase from the book Moms on Call, it was not no, yes, ma'am, and do it. I cannot tell you how many times that phrase has popped out of my mouth when my kids say, no, I don't want this. Not no, yes, ma'am, and do it. How often do they have opportunities to help you out? That's one way that they can honor you, right? Hey, can you help me cook dinner? Can you please help me set the table? Can you please help me fold the laundry? Can you please help me clean out and vacuum out the car? Look for ways all around your day for your children to help you. And that's one way that they can honor you. Your privacy. This is one I thought was really funny, where Wendy Mogul talks about like that your children should always knock before they come into your bedroom and ask for permission to enter. And I laugh. I'm like, they don't even do that when I'm in the toilet. So that's something that we're trying to work on, right? I think this last one she talks about is if your children, do they ask you when they're going to get like a drink or they're going to get a snack? Do they turn around and say, hey, would you like one? Can I offer you one, Mom? Gosh, that would be a miracle. I've got to work on that this summer, teaching our kids to offer others something when they are going to get something. That's one way that they can honor other people. I think this is one of the most wonderful phrases. I know a lot of people are like, oh, because I said so, that's the worst thing ever. But honestly, I think you don't have to say because I said so, but there is a bit of an attitude if you're in a position of authority that it's you do it because I am the authority and I've been gifted with that role. It is my responsibility as your parent to use it wisely, to not, be a despot in the house. But a lot of times our kids will say, okay, we say, okay, I need you to unload the dishes. And they're like, why? Because I, as the authority in your life, need you to unload the dishes. I don't have to explain myself. And a lot of times as parents, we get caught up in, oh, well, because, it's your turn, your sister did it last time. And then we get in arguments like, oh, well, she didn't do it I did it last time. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is not an argument I need to be having with you. I am the authority in the house, and you are the child. When you have your own house, you will be your own authority. But until that day, you listen to me. And I think a lot of it, as parents, sometimes we think, oh, authority means that you're mean, or authority means that you have a mean tone. And that's not it at all, right? If you think about the parents that you wish you were like, or you've seen their children respond to them and wow, those kids really respect their authority. Most of the time, they're not mean. Most of the time, they just have a gentle, commanding presence. They expect their children to do what they say. They don't let their children argue back with them. And so I think, as parents, we go, okay, well, how do I do that? Right. It's again going back to these little questions about interrupting, about talking back, about helping out, about giving you privacy. And then when you say something and they, the phrase, I can't remember where I learned it, but I love you too much to argue with you, right? It ends it. I don't want to argue with you right now. You are not my equal. We do not argue. I say that you need to do this and you need to do it. We need to get in the car right now, or you need to set the table, or whatever it is. And honestly, if we think about it, that builds their resilience, because that you believe that they are capable of being under authority. If you don't believe your children are capable of living under authority, they're going to be so spoiled, and spoiled children are not resilient, right? So just think, your authority in the household is actually helping your child with their future in a way that is really impactful. This last chapter, what it's, the book is named for, is talking about the blessing of small hurts and the blessing of a skinned knee. So not overprotecting your child. And this one was just, I read this book right at the right time, particularly with toddlers, right? When your kids are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's this, right, moment as a parent where all you want to do, they are getting into everything and you are trying to stop them from getting into everything. But there is this beautiful balance, right? That when you believe your child can handle pain and you show that belief in how you respond to those little pains in life, whether it be a little friendship pain or a little grade pain or a little physical pain, right? They realize when you respond with, not that big a deal, or you've got this, or I know that hurts, but I bet you're going to be okay. Suddenly you're building their resilience because they can handle the little hurt and they don't need you to swoop in and save them. And so I love this quote from Wendy Mogul. She says, withdraw your power if you want your child to grow by giving them a chance to survive some danger or letting them make reckless or thoughtless choices. We teach them to withstand the bumps and knocks of life. This is the only way children will mature into resilient, self-reliant adults. And so there's actually a lot more. I know Wendy Mogul wrote this book a while ago, and so there's been a lot of research that actually, reinforces this. This new book out by Jonathan Haidt called Anxious Generation talks a lot about the fact that our children are not breakable. And in fact, they're anti-breakable. I think they call it anti-fragile in the book. And this idea is that your child will actually get stronger from the bumps and knocks of life. So maybe what this looks like is, oh man, it's a cold day at school and you forgot your sweater. I am so sorry. That is such a bummer. And I hate that you're going to be cold, but I know you're going to be able to handle it. And next time you'll bring your sweater. Or, man, you forgot your homework. I can't bring it to you. I'm so sorry. I have things to do in my day too, but I know you're going to remember next time. And I know you're going to be able to be honest and talk to your teacher about the fact that you forgot and not covered. Wow, as a parent, aren't that in that moment, you're building such resilience with your child, right? Or maybe there's friendship drama. You're not going to call that mom and ream her out or him out for, having a child who hurt your child's feelings on the playground. Every teacher will tell you that playground drama is good for kids. It helps them learn how to manage their own problems, their own social dynamics. The only time you should get involved at first as a parent is just to be a listener, right? Oh man, tell me about that. That really hurts when you feel left out. What do you want to do about it? You're building your child's resilience, right? Now, of course, and I did a session on this a while back called A Parent's Role in Social Drama. If you want to dive more into that, check that out. But there's, so many ways that sometimes as parents, we try to overprotect our children or keep them from encountering any kind of trouble or struggle. And it's like, you know what? No, our children are resilient. I began using this when my children were little and they were learning to ride a bike. And the minute riding a bike's hard and it takes a lot of bumps to fall off, but you learn a lot about yourself and how to be resilient every time you get back on. And so I remember when my children were little, the minute they would fall off, they would look to me for my reaction, kind of like we look to the flight attendants on planes to see like, oh, is this turbulence fine turbulence or not? They would look to me and I would smile and I would say, man, that was a surprise. Or, whoops, you fell off. What are you going to do? And even if they had, scrapes and blood, unless I made a reaction, they would be like, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to get back on and try again. Right. But the minute I said, oh, ooh, are you okay? That was the minute that they, no. Right. And so, yes, we can be compassionate, right? We can say, oh man, that looked like it hurt. You want to keep going or do you want to hug? Right. There's lots of ways that we can still be compassionate and loving and not callous people who are like, oh, whatever, you can handle it. But I think, right, I see you fell down. What do you want to do? what's your next step? Put the resilience in their corner. I think I love this quote too, right? Treating children's daily distresses as an expected and unalarming part of life is an effective way to discourage them from turning small difficulties into big dramas. Building Midot, I don't know if I said that right. Sorry if I didn't. Good character traits is a lifelong process. We can help children become calmer and more resilient by staying calm ourselves. And this applies not just to our kids riding bikes, right? It applies to middle school getting cut from a team or failing a class. It applies to college applications. It applies to not getting asked to prom or not having the right car or getting fired from a job, right? There are going to be struggles in our children's lives, and the way we respond is how they are going to learn to respond. And so respond with kindness, but of course, toughness as well. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm so thankful that you showed up and we're enjoying Wendy Mogul's book, The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. If you have any feedback for me on these sessions, I would love it. You can scan that QR code and fill out a short form. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for Money Matters. Have a great day.